Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar presentation. I'm Deandra Glover Thomas, Program Coordinator for the Kentucky Autism Training Center. And today's webinar is Fun and Learning with Structured Playgroups. It will be presented by Kim Howard. She is a field trainer here at KATC. Feel free to ask questions or make comments at any point throughout the presentation by typing your question in the question box and clicking send. If you cannot see the question box, click on the orange box with the white arrow in the upper right corner of your screen to open the question box area, and Kim will be answering questions you submit at the end of the presentation today. Kim Howard graduated from Morehead State University with an undergraduate degree in moderate to severe disabilities and graduate degrees in learning and behavior disorders and counseling. Kim taught Fleming County's structured classroom, which was a classroom for children with autism or children with autism-like issues. She was also a member of Fleming County's autism cadre and was assigned to work in her district with classroom teachers who had students with autism that needed additional support to be successful in the regular classroom. In the past, Kim has helped the district decide on a diagnosis of educational autism when needed. In addition, she spent 2 years developing structured unit classrooms in preschool, elementary, and high school in Fleming and Menifee counties. In her current role here at KATC, Kim provides direct training and technical assistance to education staff, social and community personnel, counselors, job coaches, and families. And without further ado, I'd like to switch our screen over to our presenter today, Kim Howard. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning.
I am
Uh,
switching over to you now.
okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let me. Here we go. I think I got it. All
Okay.
right. Hi, guys. Okay. We're good. So thank you for joining me today for Fun and Learning with Structured Playgroups. Hopefully these are the things that we will leave with an understanding of. So what is a structured playgroup, how to set up a structured playgroup, and how to support children participating in them. And then also, I hope you will leave with an understanding of what types of goals are appropriate to work on in a structured playgroup, or what areas of difficulties for children with autism can we work on inside of a structured playgroup setting. So what is a structured playgroup? And I'll tell you, when I first started this, when I first started researching for this webinar, I had some ideas about what they would be, and it changed as I did more research. So it's small groups of elementary age learners with and without disabilities engaged in structured creative play with an adult facilitator. And so what that really means is that it's looking for a setup of approximately 3 to 6 children. Primarily, you want more children without disabilities than children with disabilities. So you want there to be a pretty high number. And some groups have, maybe just 1 or 2 learners with a disability or with autism, and then the other 3 to 4 children are all children, typically developing peers. So structured playgroups kind of combined forms of play therapy, but it's not based on like psychoanalytical type of play therapy, but it's looking more at using the basis of play as kind of a conduit for teaching skills, play skills in a constructive way. So that's kind of where we're going with structured playgroups. First, we're going to look at play itself. So why is play important? And I think if you're early childhood in an early childhood setting, you'll know that play is super important for all of our children with and without disabilities. We know that play is very, very important, and it's the work of children. It's what children do. I know some Head Start preschool teachers will tell me adults come into their classroom and they see the students engaged in play and they say, oh, preschool, they're just playing, they're not really learning anything. But children learn a lot through play, and it's how children are supposed to learn at that age. And so through play, children learn about their self and their environment. They're looking at learning how to problem solve with their peers by working out difficulties that might occur as they're playing. Play also helps children's language increase through interactions with others, and play in early childhood is one of the foundations for future success in school. So we know that play is really important, and we know that play for children with autism is something that is frequently very difficult, something that can be very difficult for them to engage in, especially without a lot of support. So I'm hoping when you leave today, you'll leave with some ideals of how to set up your own play group or how that might look like in your setting. So we're going to look at stages of typical play. So for typical kids, they begin by engaging in solitary play. And that's kind of where our children with autism get stuck at. And that's one of the goals. So of structured playgroup is to move children with autism from repetitive solitary play patterns of play to one that involve interaction with peers and imagination. So solitary play is just what you think. It's playing by yourself. Typical peers might be playing appropriately with a toy. For our kiddos with autism, this might look like lining toys up in a row. Maybe they're playing with a car, but they're not rolling the car on the floor, but they're playing with the wheels of the car, those types of things. So the second type of play that we're going to talk about today and look at is parallel play, and that's where two children are playing kind of side by side. They're not necessarily interacting at all. They're not necessarily even doing the same task. They're just kind of playing in the same general area. And I have a student right now that if he's in a preschool setting, and when children move into the center that he's at, if other children come in even just to play beside him, he leaves. He is not able to tolerate them at this point, even being in the same center as he is. So he very much is stuck in solitary play. So the third kind is associative play, and what associative play is where so two kids are building block towers separately. They're each building their own block tower, and one child looks over at at the other child's block tower and says, "Hey, I like how you put that. I like how you made the top of your building." And then they go back to playing. So associative play, they might make a comment about the other child's play, but they're still not playing together. They're just kind of doing their own thing, but they might make comments about a different, the child next to them. They might make a comment about what they're building or what they're playing or what item that they are making. And then the fourth type of play is cooperative play, and this is the type of play that we hope all children achieve at some point. And what cooperative play is that it could be a game, and that's the little picture here. It's kids playing cards. It's kids playing interactively together. So in an early childhood classroom, this might be children playing family in the dress-up center. Maybe they're all, they all have a different role, but they're playing together. Maybe this is out on the playground, kids playing tag, different settings that this could be, but cooperative play is kids interacting together and playing together in the same game or the same imaginative play to like dress up or some other type of play that would help them, let them play together. So we're going to look at why play is difficult for children with autism. So some of the characteristics of autism can become a barrier for children to play. So we know that sometimes they have inflexible and repetitive patterns of play. And what this might look like is that for some of my kiddos, they have a toy. A little fellow has a Thomas the Train, and he only runs it on one track. And if anyone else tries to interact with him during that time, he will become a little bit aggressive or push them away. And he only sets up the same track. Every time that he plays with the Thomas the Train, he sets up the same track. So if I interfere and when I try to introduce others, even introducing other setups for the way that the track could be shaped, he becomes very upset. It is very hard for him to change how he plays with Thomas the Train. So, and when you think about typical kids, they change things a lot. they're going to make 10 different setups of the track. They're going to want that track to look different maybe every time or frequently. They're going to add things to that track or take things away and play with it, the same toy in the same track, but play with it in multiple different ways. And for children with autism, that might be very difficult. Um, Also, communication deficits, children that are lacking language skills, and children communicate a lot when they're playing with each other. You know, hand me this block. Can you give me the toy? I want the red one. No, no, I meant the yellow one. Kids communicate a lot, and so children with autism sometimes have a lack of verbal skills, and so and for young children, they may be in the process. Hopefully, they have somebody involved who are teaching them functional communication skills, are giving them alternative means to communicate through a PEC system or other ways that children with autism would be able to communicate without using their voice. So, and also lack of understanding of social cues of peers. They may not be able to pick up on they're not going to be able to read body language necessarily. They're not going to understand what peers are thinking based on their face. Children with autism have mind blindness, and I've seen this affect play settings pretty harshly sometimes because I had a little fellow and in the second grade, and he was out there with the peers and was playing with them, but a peer they were playing a game, and a peer bumped into him and knocked him down. And it was clearly an accident, but he did not understand. He couldn't see, what the other person was thinking, and to him, it was on purpose. So there was a big misunderstanding of what had happened in this interaction with the peer. So the child with autism thought that he'd been injured on purpose, and he became very upset and said, "I hate you, you hurt me on purpose." And it was very hard for him to let go of those negative feelings towards that peer. And so then the next time that they were together, the peer is remembering, what this child had said to him, and there was a gap in the social skills. So it was something that we had to work on, teaching him a way to say, you hurt me, and also helping him to understand that it was just an accident. Kids, when they're out there playing, think people are going to get bumped into. This is something that's going to happen. It's not necessarily on purpose, and it wasn't his intention to hurt you. But that particular student had a really hard time letting go and seeing that the way that that child had bumped him was just a pure accident. And it made it difficult, and it made it to where other children were somewhat afraid of him, and they didn't want to necessarily interact with him because they'd had such a negative experience. Children with autism may have restricted interest that make it very difficult to incorporate other kids into their play. So I had a little guy who liked to fluff cotton balls. He would put them on the ground and or like pom-poms, little pom-poms that you could, little crafty pom-poms that you can find. He would put them on the ground, and he would kind of scoop them up and kind of let them drop in front of his face. And when he had independent time or when he had free time and he was allowed to choose something to play, that's what he chose to play, is he would scoop up cotton balls and kind of let them fall in front of his face. And so typical peers were not interested in that, and so we had to build play skills for him, and that's something that we'll talk about later on, is how to build play skills if you're starting at the place that that little guy was. So these are the goals. These are some of the goals that you might be able to teach. So structured playgroups are designed to teach specific goals using modeling, role-playing, and prompting by facilitator and peers. And they use the word facilitator in structured playgroup on purpose because in the beginning, at least in the beginning, you're going to need an adult to kind of scaffold things and kind of help bridge the gap. And the adult is going to help decide what activity is happening. And I'll talk about that more, but I think it's important to realize why they're saying facilitator, because they don't want the adult to kind of take over the group. The adult's role is not to say purposefully be involved in every single step. So the adult's role is to kind of be the facilitator and then back up, kind of back up out of the play group and allow play to happen. And the adult intervenes in the instances where there's a social misunderstanding, there is communication difficulty, there is students that are not carrying out their part. And so playgroups use modeling, so they're kind of seeing those peers interact, and they're having the adult facilitator to point out the way that play should look like. And there's some research out there that says that if you just take, so I know when I was in school, when I taught in a classroom, I always made sure my kids were included at recess for their typical peers, which I think is a great thing. You know, kids, they need that opportunity to be out around other kids, especially if you're in a self-contained classroom or a child who is not spending a lot of time with their same age peers. But what research tells us is that if you don't have that adult facilitator and you don't have purposeful interactions, our children with autism are not necessarily taking anything away from that. They're not necessarily learning a lot of the social skills that we would hope, because they don't necessarily know how to learn by just watching. They don't have that, always have that skill of being able to just imitate. So they're lacking that imitation skill. So we need a facilitator to help bridge that gap. So goals that can be taught during structured play groups would be social skills. And when I say social skills, so the types of ones that I would think of would be would be initiation. So asking for things, asking for an item. Maybe it's a group that is painting. Maybe it's a group that is, we're going to talk about a Lego club. So, you know, I need the red brick, or have being able to initiate conversations and interact with other peers. And then, so communication skills would be being able to have those conversations and being able to initiate a conversation. And so social skills would be joint attention. So what joint attention is that it's where it's that shared social moment. So if you and I went to the movies together, we both see something funny happen on the movie screen. We look at the movie screen, something funny happens, we look at each other, and then we laugh together, and then we look back at the movie screen. So kids with autism frequently struggle with joint attention, and they miss out on those shared social moments that are so important for kind of nonverbal communication skills that most people don't really think about. We can also teach imaginative play during structured play groups. And what imaginative play is that, and why it's a struggle for kiddos with autism is that um, so stepping out of the role. So a baby doll is not alive. So I had a student who and she was a little girl, and so we were looking at teaching her play skills, and we were looking at what kind of skills were appropriate to her age. What were other kids that were 7 years old, what were they playing with? What kinds of things were those kids doing? And so we realized that in her class there was a little set of girls that played with baby dolls. And so I thought, well, this will be easy. You know, baby dolls are, you know, you feed them, you change their clothes, you take care of your baby. And so when we got the doll and we were working with her, she says, but this isn't an alive baby. And for her, she struggled with the imagination part. She didn't understand how to kind of pretend play. And so it was something that we had to teach her, was how to pretend play. And when you think about young children and even older children, using those imagination and those creative play skills, pretend play is a lot of what young kids do. They do a lot of pretend play, and it's how they learn to skills that they'll use when they're adults, you know, things like feeding the baby, kids that pretend cook, all of those kinds of things. So those kids are imitating what they see in the world around them. And when we think about children with autism and their lack sometimes of imitation skills, it makes sense that they would struggle with those parts of play. And so when there are opportunities to play and other kids are engaging in this pretend play, they don't know how to necessarily join in and be a part of that unless they've been purposely taught. And it can also address behaviors, is another goal that you can teach. My little guy that would scream out if something went wrong, or you know, he got bumped, and so he said, I hate you, I hate you. That's definitely a problem behavior, something that we wanted to address right away, because we didn't want him to be seen in a negative light by his peers. And those were pretty strong words. So it was something that we were able to address through kind of a structured play group with him and looking at purposefully what skills can we teach and how can we help him bridge the gap in some of the areas that were such a struggle for him. So this is how you would set up a structured playgroup, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples in a few minutes. So first, I've already said this, you're going to select a small group of children with and without disabilities who have a shared interest. It's going to be better if they have kids who kind of have a common interest, so like Lego Club. I have a video example of a little kid who played Paw Patrol, Paw's Patrol, and they do activities based around that. So kind of a theme type play group is going to be better because then the kids all have a shared interest. And this is a great place if you have a child who has a restricted interest. So years ago it would have been Pokemon or Digimon. I don't necessarily know what they would be now. So, but that during those time span, you could have a shared interest group based off of those types of activities. So you're going to agree upon a common theme. And so typically in the beginning, the adult chooses the activity. The adult is going to choose the activity, and so that's how come the adult role is important, because the adult is going to know the different abilities and disabilities of all the children involved, and they're going to be able to pick an activity that would be appropriate. So types of examples of activities might be maybe painting, maybe in the video example they cook and they run a pretend restaurant afterwards. They do a little cooking activity and then they run a pretend restaurant. Any type of creative play, I think, would make a lot of sense, and that's what they recommend is creative play. So there's lots of options out there for creative plays. And then you're going to assign roles. Each person is going to have a role that they're going to carry out throughout this play group, and that's really important. And you're going to have an adult facilitator to mediate misunderstandings of emotions or to encourage children to participate and facilitate communication. And some other things that are important when you're setting up a structured playgroup would be they need to have a kind of a consistent routine. Kind of a set schedule of the way that it's going to flow and the way that it's going to work. And that's important for children with autism to help reduce anxiety about the unknown and to help them to be able to focus better on what's happening in the moment if they don't have to worry about what's coming next so much. So kind of having that consistent schedule will help your playgroup to run more efficiently, I think. So what the goal is to bring competent peer partners and children with autism who have similar interests. And the adult facilitator is going to kind of assist in scaffolding the skills of the structured playgroup. So this is a video example, and I'm not going to click on it right now because with the webinar, there's a little bit of a time delay. And don't you click on it right now. Wait a few minutes, and after this is done, you can go back and watch this. And I'll tell you a little bit about it right now, so when you go back and watch it, it'll make more sense. I felt like you needed to see a structured playgroup in action. It will help you understand kind of what your outcome will be. And so what this video example is a little girl moved into a neighborhood, and she was lucky enough to move into her neighbors were a special education teacher, and the little girl had pretty significant autism, and the special education teacher, the neighbor, found out that there were other children in the neighborhood who were interested in playing with this little girl, but they did not understand how to interact with her. And the little girl with autism did not understand how to interact with the other children. And so this teacher set up a structured play group for this child, which I thought was pretty phenomenal. It's a good moment when you move into the neighborhood and you have the perfect person next door. And so they set up this play group called Paw Patrols. And this is the video that I was just telling you about, that the adult facilitator goes over kind of the schedule, and they have some rules, and each child is assigned roles, and I think there were about maybe 6 or 8 kids in this one, so one child with autism, and then about 6 to 7 typical peers were involved in this. And so they set up, they baked cookies all together, and everybody had a role. And they, at the end, you could either be a restaurant patron or you were a wait staff. And so your job was to ask people what they wanted to eat. and then you serve them, and then there were so many interactions required. So they were supposed to say hi to people. It was important for them in this to encourage people. And so what I like about structured playgroups is that not only is this really beneficial for the child with autism, in that it gives them an opportunity to practice play skills in a setting where there's an adult right there on hand to kind of immediately facilitate any misunderstandings in communication, any emotional issues that are happening that, maybe the child with autism isn't reading the situation correctly, and the adult can assist with that by teaching them right in the moment. And so it makes for naturalistic environment, and gives you the place to where you can correct problem behaviors right as they're happening, and it gives children without disabilities the setting to where they're interacting with a child with disabilities. And I think that that helps them to grow. At least maybe that's my own personal opinion, is that it's good for the children without disabilities as well, in that we all live in a world to where there are lots of people with disabilities and people who are different than us. And so I think it's important to teach all children how to interact with others who are the same as them and who are different than them. And so it helps them, and the adult facilitator is there. Maybe there's a communication difficulty, and so the adult is there to say, oh, it's okay. He isn't able to say those words right now, but he's using this communication device. And while he's learning to talk, or maybe that's never going to be something possible for him, but here is how he's going to communicate with you, and that's okay. It's okay that we're all different. That's what I really liked about this example, was that I think that everyone involved in a structured play group is going to benefit, not just the child with autism. We're going to talk about love a little bit. When I went back to the basis for structured play group as an evidence-based practice, it was based on a couple of different research articles, and one of them researched Lego Club. Now, when I first realized it was based off of Lego Club, I thought, yes, my son is involved in Lego Club at our local library, and which is a great program, but it's not a structured play group in that it's more associative play. Everyone comes and they all build their own item. Maybe we are all building a ship today on this, one Saturday out of the month. Everybody comes and we're all building a ship, but they're all building their own ship. He does have to interact with other people, so he might need to ask for blocks. He sometimes compliments other people's ship that they built, but primarily he's building his own thing. He can do it however he wants. He doesn't necessarily have to interact with others. But the way that a structured play group, a Lego club, would work is that you're going to have some specific rules. So there are specific roles, excuse me. So the roles for Lego Club are engineer, and the engineer role is going to oversee the design and make sure that it's followed. The builder is going to be the person who actually touches the bricks. Not everyone is going to be the one who puts it together, so the builder is the one who actually puts the bricks together. There is a supplier, and the supplier is the one who keeps track of what bricks are needed, and it's the supplier's job to give those bricks to the builder. And then there's a director, and the director's job is to make sure that the whole team is working together and communicating. And so Lego Club, I thought, was a pretty unique thing. And we all know, at least I know, in my household, Legos are pretty phenomenal, and everybody is excited to play with Legos. At least in my house, everyone in my house is excited to play with Legos. So the way that this works is that it's a creative project in that you are building something and making something where there was nothing, and possibly uh, possibly you are, and it gives everybody a purpose, I guess. So, and they're forced to interact together. So there's just you're building one specific item, and it could be very small. I know some of those boxes have 1,000, there's 1,000 Legos in the box. And I think that can be, I wouldn't start a Lego club with a build where you're building 1,000 items, 1,000 piece project, but I've seen examples of Lego Club to where they only built, they only used 15 blocks based on the age of their kiddos and based on the needs of the child with autism. They started out very small. And I think the reason why Lego Club roles make sense is that only one person is putting it together and everyone else is supporting them. And so everybody has a role, and the adult facilitator's purpose is to make sure that everyone is sticking with their role and everyone is helping and working together. So through working together, they are interacting socially, they are hopefully communicating, and so it gives the child with autism that chance to interact with others with an adult facilitator there to help um, scaffold social skills and communication skills and to immediately respond to any emotional or behavioral difficulties that occur. So I liked Lego Club for that, and I think Lego Club would be pretty easy to set up in a classroom setting, and it's something that is age appropriate for a variety, and my husband enjoys building with Legos, so I think you could go pretty, you could be older and play with Legos, or you could be younger and play with Legos. Um, I liked Legos in that typical peers are going to respond and be interested in joining a Lego club. So that's what I really liked about that was that it was a great way I felt like to incorporate typical peers. And in the balance of the different roles, engineer, builder, supplier, director, I think that you could find a place that would be right for the child with autism and they could have a role. And it's important to change roles. It's important that everybody has a turn being all the different parts, and everyone is learning how to support all of their peers in that setting. So that's what I really liked about Lego Club. And I also included a video example of Lego Club because I felt like it makes more sense when you see Lego Club in action. It made a lot more sense to me when you see it in action. So this video is I think 3 little boys, and it's in a home setting. It's very hard to get videos in a school, and there is an adult facilitator, and they are all working together to build a single project. And so, and I felt like it made a lot of sense for you to see what Lego Club looked like, and then that would help you to understand the different roles in it and the way that kids how they interact. Because when you read it, when I was first reading about Lego Club, I thought, I'm still not seeing how they're all going to interact, and I'm envisioning in my mind everybody wants to be the builder. I want to be the one who's putting all the pieces together. But I think that the approach of it is that everybody has a role, and it's important for everybody to carry out their part, because when everybody is doing their job, then the item, the ship gets built. But if one person isn't doing their part of the role, their part of the build, then the ship isn't able to be built. So it helps kids to interact with each other. And it was really neat to see the kids, the typical peers, encouraging the child with disability in this video. I felt like it was really neat to see how when they were struggling a little bit, that they were able to encourage them. So I thought that was pretty neat. Okay, and then so the other kind of research that structured playgroup was based off of was interactive playgroups, which was kind of what we talked about in the beginning. So that's kind of, I guess, the end of my spiel for structured playgroups. And I want to talk a little bit about structured play in general, because I felt like structured play kind of went along with structured play groups. And the way that structured play would be different is that it's not necessarily, you don't necessarily have a role. And I use structured play for my students who, that come to me, and they're like my little guy who, he fluffed cotton balls. He did not know how to interact with toys at all at that point, and the toys that he did interact with, he didn't interact appropriately. And what I find and have found in my classroom for children with autism is that it was so easy for me sometimes once I had my students set up on a work system, once they understood an independent workstation, and once they understood teacher workstation, once they understood how to work, my my most difficult and problem behaviors came during choice time when they were supposed to be playing. And what I found was that my kids didn't not know how to play. They did not know how to interact with toys on an appropriate basis. They did not know um, how to play. And so it was something that I had to purposefully teach. And so the type of structured play that I use is based off of the principles of teach out of UNC North Carolina, the TEACH program. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about here today. I'm going to show you some examples of setting up structured play. And what structured play basically does is that it takes play and it makes it more visual. And so when we think about play, I could set my son down. You see the Legos. I would just give him a basket of Legos, and you would expect him to build something. And most kids, by the time they're probably 3, 3, 4, are going to start having those skills to where you can give them a box of Legos or you can give them this basket of toys, and they're going to play with it. Um, but for what I found and what research has found for our children with autism is that they will look at that basket of Legos and they're going to line them up. Or they're going to find this little item in here with the wheels and they're going to spin them. Oh, go backwards. They're going to spin this little item with wheels here, this little block with the wheels on it. They're going to spin the wheels. So what we found was that so this is just a way to make play more visual for our students who are struggling severely with play. So this little Lego container here, you can see they've numbered it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it gives them a picture example of adding every single piece. And inside of this basket, it's only the pieces that they need to build this train. So there's not a whole, 100-piece basket. So they're not overwhelmed. It has a clear start and finished, and it only has the pieces that they needed. So I use structured play frequently in my younger age settings, and even through elementary school with students who um, they have work down, they know how to learn, they know how to do academic work, but when it's time for our break, and teachers will tell me, I can write break, but I have no idea what he'll do on the break. And when we think about typical peers, well, what do typical peers do on a break? Well, they play. And so this is how I would teach the very start of play. And this is not in a group. This is more solitary play. It could be together, but this is how I would teach probably just the very beginning skills of how to play. So what this board here is with the cow and the horse and the pig, and you've got the little pieces over here, is that this would be set up next to everybody likes sensory bins, and you expect kids to put their hands in there. And what always happened in my classroom was they threw the beans. I had the bin of beans or the bin of rice, and you have things hidden in it, and they're supposed to dig through and find them. But what I always found was that my kids, if they didn't have specific instructions there, they just threw the rice around or they threw the beans, and I ended up with a big mess. So if I placed a board that had a picture of what they were looking for next to that sensory area, then they match. There's a little strip of Velcro here, and they're going to find the item in the sensory bin and then match it to. And when all the items are matched, then that particular task is done. So that's some of the ways that I would teach structured play. And I have seen this set up and I thought this made so much sense for even kiddos in, typical kiddos in a kiddo might not know, what do you do with the items in a vet kit? So this is just a little example. So this is obviously pretend play, which is something that we know that children with autism struggle with. And so they've got their couple of little pets here, and they've got a whole bin of toys that can be used to doctor these pets. So I like structured play because it shows them clearly. There's a picture here that shows you could feed them, you could brush this pet, maybe you're going to wrap a bandage on the pet, maybe you're going to listen to his heartbeat right here, maybe this dog is getting a shot and you're going to pretend to give the dog a shot. So it gives kids who are learning to pretend play, it gives them ideals for how to pretend play. And I think that makes a lot of sense for our children with autism. So this is a potato head. I had a teacher come to me and say, I set this child with this, he was going to play, and we have this bin, and there are, 10 potato head people and all of their pieces in this whole big basket, and he just threw them all over my room. And so she was very upset with the student and felt like he was being difficult. But the issue was that he had no idea how to put together a potato head, and he got really overwhelmed by this basket of 10 different potato head people and all their parts. And so he started throwing these pieces, these objects away from him because they didn't have a meaning to him. He did not understand what to do with those items. So that's what structured play does, is that it literally makes play more visual. So you can see here with the potato head guy, they've numbered his pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each photograph they've added on the next part. And then the child only has the pieces that they're going to use. They only have enough parts to put together this potato head. So it makes it more simple. And now as the child learns and learns how to put together a potato head, then you can add more pieces, and then you can look at giving them the option, the ability to be more creative with it. But for children who are just learning play skills or have no play skills at all, this is a great place to start. Um, so this is a doctor's kit, and it's kind of like the vet kit in that it shows you things that you might do with a doctor's kit and a buddy. So it takes out the guesswork for our children with autism. And what's great about structured play is that this is going to be awesome for students with a variety of disabilities. Children with lots of other disabilities might need this visual reminder of how to play and how to interact with items. So I use this book. It's called Task Allure, Let's Play. And I just wanted to show you I needed to show you the book because I'm using a couple of pictures out of it right now next. But this is a great book, and it gives you a lot of ideals. If you're just beginning to teach play, it's a really good book to start with, to kind of get you prompted along on where to go with teaching play. So this is a farm activity. So the teachers, the child did not know how to play, and so they were interested in farms, and so the teachers set up this activity. So the cow is going to walk to the barn, the cow is going to eat some grass, and these are pages right out of the Let's Play book. So I just wanted you to kind of see what it had inside of it. So this is a dollhouse. So for little girls who are learning to play, this is the who. So they're supposed to pick a doll, and then what are they going to do? And then they're going to move that into the house. So it gives them a way to kind of figure out how to play with the dollhouse and how to get started with that. So I like structure play a lot, and I've had the opportunity this year to use it in the classrooms that I'm working in. I'm in several Head Starts and preschool this year, and when I'm talking with the teachers and they're like, well, what are we going to work on? And I'm like, well, what are typical peers doing? What should this child be doing? What is appropriate for them to be doing in your classroom? And we keep coming back to, well, they should be playing. And what we're finding is that it's very difficult. Play sounds so easy, and our typical kids just imitate other kids and are able to learn how to play. And what we found is that children with autism, they struggle with imitation. So we have to make it more visual, and that's what I like about structured play is that it takes a way to make play more visual. So is there any questions out there?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. So the first one is a lot of autistic children are overwhelmed by colors, lights, sounds, etc. Does Lego Club have a large amount of bricks, or does it overwhelm autistic children to have too many options? Are they sorted to minimize sensory overload, or does organization of bricks inhibit that goal?
Well, I would say you're only going to have enough bricks for what you're building. So you're not going to have the 1,000 pieces, whatever you come with. And I would start out small, especially if you have a child who is going to be overwhelmed by too much bricks, too many options, then you're only going to start out with what you need. So if you're building a tower that takes 15 blocks, you're only going to have 15 blocks. I wouldn't sort the colors. I would leave that up to, I'm going to flip back to the roles of Lego Club. I would leave that to either the supplier, the person who's keeping track, or I think it could be a role. I think it would be a part of the supplier's role, possibly to sort those, or the director. I think that's something that the kids could work out to sort those. But I wouldn't, because I think that that would be a part of Lego Club. But then I also would not have out 1,000 bricks either. I would keep it to just what they need. And I would only have those out because I know when my sons brought home a project and I get the box and it says 550 Legos, I just want to cry sometimes because I'm a little overwhelmed. So I think that um, you would know your child's abilities and know what they're capable of. And I like Lego Club because kids are going to be, it's something that it's really easily to get typical peers involved in. But if you know that that they are not, your child with autism is going to be not enjoying Lego Club, and this is something that they're really going to be frustrated with, then I think that structured play groups, it doesn't have to be a Lego Club. I think that's just one example of what a structured play group might look like. Um, and it can be any kind of creative play. So,
Okay. The second question is also about Legos, but it says in your structured play example of Legos, only the pieces needed for the truck are provided. Should sensory type activities always be limited to just what is needed? Similarly, should toys be organized by color, type, size, shape, etc. in structured play, or does it inhibit developmental goals to organize in this way?
no, I wouldn't organize in that way. I don't think that they have to be, because I think that kids need to be exposed to real life, somewhat exposed. I think that, so I'm going to flip to the example of that you're talking about. So in this item, they're limited to just the bricks that they need, because having all of the bricks would be too much. And so I think it's a good way to start, especially for a child who doesn't know what to do with Legos. But I wouldn't sort them by color, shape. I don't think that you have to go that far. I think that what you'll see is that your kiddos who need that done will do it themselves automatically. And I wouldn't necessarily stop them unless it's inhibiting the play activity. But what I would do is keep exposing them. As a parent of somebody, as a parent of a child who has obsessive compulsive disorder, I would say that if they need that, they will do it themselves pretty instantly, but I would keep exposing them to them all kind of mixed together. And in the structure play example of the Lego train, um, you just have the pieces that you need, so you wouldn't have lots of extras. So you can tell there's probably only less than 10 pieces there, and that's why I think it works so much better than getting starting out. And if you're looking at doing a Lego club, you wouldn't start out with a project that is several hundred pieces. You would start small and build upon the skills of your kids. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's that's how I see that.
Okay. All right. Well, it looks like that was our last question for today.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
Right. Thank you for joining us. And the handouts are on the side panel under the handouts bar. You can download the handouts from there. If you're having any problems with downloading the handouts, feel free to contact me. My email address should be on your confirmation email when you register for today's webinar, and I can send it to you through email as well. And so, thank you for joining us today. And also, feel free to watch any of our other webinars that are on our YouTube channel at KY Autism Training on our YouTube channel. Kim, thanks so much for today's presentation.
Thank you.
All right. And thanks everybody for joining us. Goodbye.